All right, let's switch gears to the Reds. All right, let's switch gears to the Bengals, Skinny. The Bengals on Monday announced they have re-signed guard Dalton Risner to a 1-year contract. According to Spot Rack, he can make up to $5 million with a $3.25 million contract, $1 million of it being guaranteed, and $1.75 million in incentives. This seemed like a no-brainer. We had talked about it multiple times, but I think the cool part of this came once it actually got done and everybody got to hear from Dalton Risner about it, because that was a pretty unique press conference. I don't think you hear that very often.
No, I mean, it was interesting, too. When we talked to him on Locker Cleanout Day, the Monday after the regular season finale, I mean, he made no bones about the fact that he loved being with the Bengals, glad he signed with them, would love to come back. He made a point of, hey, but business can be business sometimes. And I think that's what probably dragged this longer than it should have. That, again, both sides are probably trying to get to a figure they felt comfortable. I always thought it was going to be somewhere in the $4 million range, and that's kind of where it fell. I mean, $1 million guaranteed, but he's going to make $3 million in salary and another 1.75 in incentives, and that's fine. That means he's played a bunch of snaps or played a bunch of games, or I don't know if it's going to be tied to a metric or anything like that. I've not seen what the incentives are, but it felt like finally, both sides got to a spot where it was comfortable for both of them. And listen, the offensive line over the last 10 or 12 games of the season, I think starting with the game at Green Bay, the first game Joe Flacco started, I think they wound up from PFF either 6th or 7th in the NFL over that time frame. I mean, I know they finished 28th overall, but that's a pretty significant step. And the eyeballs, I think, showed us that, right? I think like the eyeball test over that stretch with, excuse me, as I battle a cold, I think the eyeball test showed you that too, that finally they got the continuity of when Risner went back in for Jalen Rivers at right guard and Dylan Fairchild got back healthy at left guard, and then Karras at center and the two guys that tackled it. That group with some cohesiveness and Scott Peters bringing them along. And I think Scott struggled early in the year with those guys. I think they struggled with Scott, the offensive line coach, because he's got some weird techniques and different techniques, and maybe they fought some of those things, but over time came to really believe in him and trust him. I think it's good to have the band back together. Yeah,
I mean, Dalton Risner could have said enough good things about, he's like, I think I'll be my best playing for him and with these guys and the group around me. And obviously, if you've got Joe Burrow behind you and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all those weapons around you, you feel good about the offensive unit that you have. I get all that, but I think it's just refreshing for fans to hear a guy talk like this, because it's, I don't begrudge anyone who wants to make more money or
Correct.
That's what we all do for the most part in a lot of ways, right? Like we're all trying to get the best situation for ourselves. But I do think all of us like to think, well, we do take in other considerations, like if we're in a good situation, we might want to keep that thing going. And if we do have a chance to better ourselves by being in the right spot, maybe it's worth not looking for the highest dollar amount or whatever. To hear an athlete talk like that, where he was just clearly not in negotiation terms. He was telling his agent, like, all right, Drew, you've done enough negotiating. We're close enough. Just get me back into the Bengals. Like, I want to be there. That was refreshing to hear, I think, for fans. And that's why that press conference kind of, I don't know if it went viral, but it got circulated the way it did and talked about the way it did.
Yep.
The Trey Hendrickson era is over. The Bengals did not place the franchise tag on him before Tuesday's 4 p.m. deadline. The two sides have until March 11th to come to a new deal, but Hendrickson has already posted a thank you, goodbye message on social media. Skinny, it's finally over. What is your what's the postmortem on the Trey Hendrickson era with the Bengals?
Well, I mean, the whole tag and trade conversation, I told it was asinine from Jump Street. Like, it was never going to be a possibility. I'm super interested to see what he's going to get on the open market.
Yeah.
He was never going to get $30 million guaranteed, in my opinion, on the open market, which is what the franchise tag would have cost them. Listen, he was a great signing, the greatest free agent signing in Bengals history. He paid off handsomely for them. They rolled the dice a little bit, right? Like, he had that one good year in New Orleans, and it was kind of do we bring back Carl Lawson or do we go outside? They decided, let Carl Lawson go. Let's go to the outside. And, they gave him a pretty penny when he came in. They extended him a couple of times. They came to his terms somewhat to his terms last year, enough for him to finally sign a contract. So I think it was a win-win for both. And you just finally got to a price point where it wasn't worth it anymore. It wasn't worth it to place the franchise tag on a guy who's going to be 32 years old during the season, coming off core muscle surgery. That makes no sense to me, especially when you have about $40 million in salary cap space to spend to fix your defense. Are you really going to spend 30 of that on one dude who's coming off a surgery? Really? And then for those on the tag and trade part, like I said, I can't imagine there's another team that would say, yeah, we'll take on that 30 mil guaranteed. No, we're going to let him go to free agency and work on better terms. So I never believed that. The other thing too, Rick, and I told you I wrote kind of a notesy column yesterday. I included Wes in there and I included Miami should already be in and with some numbers behind it. But I led with the whole relitigating of they should have traded Trey Hendrickson last offseason. No, they shouldn't have. They wanted him on the 2025 roster because they believed they were a playoff team and he made them a better team. So there was no –
Can I push back on that a little bit, though?
Sure, but I'm going to disagree.
It was always obvious the way it was going to play out. He was going to get a boo-boo and pull an A.J. Green because of the way it played. He was unhappy with the Bengals in the situation. It was always going to happen the way it did.
He was, but he didn't pull an A.J. Green because he had core muscle surgery. So he legit was hurt. I don't think he just go get cut on for blanks and giggles.
But that would have happened regardless. So the first sign of any injury happening, he would have been done for the year. He was never going to give you his all. He wasn't there for you. I would have not made that gamble for that reason.
I think winning would have changed that. I think if they were winning and going towards the playoffs, that would have changed that. Because he's still, to the point of it, he still needed to put up a good season in order to get the money he wants now. He didn't. He played 7 games and had 4 sacks and was sackless in 4 of the games they played or 5 of the games he played. So that's where I go. I keep seeing these figures like some guy from The Athletic thinks he's going to get a 3-year, $99 million.
That's crazy.
There's if a team does that, maybe
God
there
bless
is.
them.
God bless them if they do that. It would be asinine.
I'd hate for it to be my team. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
He's my least favorite great player the Bengals have ever had, by far. He was great, but he's my least favorite.
He was just different. He wasn't awful with us. I mean, he didn't like to talk very much, but when he did, he was usually respectful and
dumb.
He kind of goofy. I mean, the whole impromptu press conference in the practice field last year is one of the most surreal things I've ever been through in my life. It just was just wild to be a part of that. But yeah, I mean, I think you look back and you go, I think the Bengals, honestly, a lot of people may not think they did right by him, but they did. I mean, they look smart now for not giving him the guaranteed money he wanted last year. Like they decided we're going to pay you, but it's going to be for this year. And hopefully you give us your best. We're giving you our best with this money. And the other years he was here, he worked out famously. It was a win-win for both. Just tip your cap and go, good luck to you, my man. Hope you stay healthy.
Yeah, thank God they didn't come to a long-term agreement last year. They handled that part of it perfectly. I would have been fine had they traded him. Like I said, I would have loved to have seen that, but it worked out fine. They played it about as well as they could have, I think. Yeah. And now you got to move on and find someone else to rush the passer again, because that's a real issue for this organization all of a sudden.
Well, I will say this, and I did look it up, and it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. When we talked to Al Golden last week at the Combine, they had 22 sacks over the last, or 23 sacks over the last 8 games. And if you extrapolate that, that's a 50 sack season for a defense, basically. And they did it kind of as a collective group. And I think that's what he's trying to figure out of, we need to add here in the interior. We need to add rotational rush out here. He does want to blitz more with some more experience and maybe getting a veteran linebacker in here and feeling good about your outside corners can cover in man and a slot corner cover man. So I think he's looking at doing this as, I don't have the elite guy, but we can do this as a collective group. And I don't think he's wrong.
I don't know. I really like, when it comes to pass rushing, I really like the game record. The guy that changes everything you want to do, that you have to change your game plan because you're scared of what he's doing to your defense. When you don't have any threat like that, they're all just kind of solid. You can be a good defense, but man, I'd much rather have that guy that scares you up front. Now, that's hard to come by. That's not easy to get, but I don't love that philosophy, if I'm being honest. The new NFL pay report cards are out. The Bengals ranked 28th overall. Players gave the team failing grades in several categories, including F- marks for treatment. That's a hell of a grade right there. F- marks for treatment of players' families and food and dining services, and an F for nutritionist and dietitian services. Those are the same marks, or the same categories that received really low grades for in previous years that we've talked about this. The interesting part, Skinny, I thought was, and it's gone this way for Zach Taylor in the past, head coach, A-, still very favorable. General manager, C, and team ownership, D+ this year. That was a drop. What do you think changed there, if anything?
I think the fact of the whole the areas that the areas they didn't improve on last year, that they continued to hold their ground on that. I don't know, and so this year we only saw the grades. I didn't see because technically this was not supposed to be made public, and the NFL owners won a grievance to have it not be made public, and it got leaked, which I'm glad it did because I think transparency is a good thing. Last year, the dietitian got a C, and it wasn't because of her. I think her name was Lindsay. It was because they wanted her to be full-time, and they were upset that she wasn't full-time. This year, they got an F-, so I don't know if she's not there any longer, if they don't like her now. I don't know what that stemmed from. I'm guessing it's still not a full-time position. I still got to be honest with you. We get to eat in there in draft weekend, and I think it's superb. Maybe I don't have a discerning enough palate. I don't know.
Isn't it more about the amount? Last year, wasn't it more about the amount of days that it's open, how often they're allowed to eat?
And that could still be the case. Yeah, they and I don't blame them for that. I think they should have that open when the players are in the facility lifting or for this or for that they should have that dining area open for them.
Most high-level college programs have that. What I've heard about Texas's situation is unbelievable for their student athletes. So it's hard for me to believe the Bengals can't figure out and can't afford that part of it. I do like the fact they gave the general manager a grade when they technically don't have a general manager. Yeah, the general manager C grade. Do you think players are getting frustrated with Duke Tobin over the way things have been dragging out constantly? Or
but I don't know if they're lumping the contract negotiations that Katie Blackburn does. Is that part of it? Who do they eye as the GM is my question.
Right. It has to be Duke, right? That's what we all say is the de facto GM.
But I don't think Duke does any of the contract stuff. His whole,
is that maybe part of it then? It's a C because you don't really have a GM. You haven't defined that enough.
Yeah.
All right, the NFL on Friday informed teams that the salary cap for the 2026 season will increase to $301.2 million. The Bengals have over $50 million available in cap space now, ranking them 7th among NFL teams. Skinny, how excited should fans be about that?
Well, again, keep in mind, chop $10 million or so off of that because it's not the real cap space because you got to pay for a practice squad. You got to pay your draft picks. You got to pay to fill out your full roster. It's usually just the top 51. But let's just chop $10
million. Somewhere between 10 to 15-ish.
Yeah. But let's just say it's $40 million. $40 million is going to buy you a lot of guys. They got a lot of guys they got to buy. They need a difference maker on the interior of the defensive line. They need a rotational edge. I asked Al Golden last week specifically, would you like to get a veteran linebacker who's been a starter in this league to use? And he said, yeah. He goes, the more pieces, the merrier. Makes us more versatile. I don't have to put Demetrius Knight up on the line as an edge setter anymore or all the time like I did last year. And, of course, we know they need at least one safety and probably wouldn't hurt to bring in a slot corner to compete with Jalen Davis. So there's a lot to do. You can do a lot with that $40 million. You can do a lot more if you try to restructure Joe Burrow.